the slight edge is behind us, and what we're really speaking to in this conversation is about entrepreneurship. It's about starting somewhere, a new sales gig, new year, whatever it may be, and we're kind of just intentionally opening up the doors of what anyone can borrow from us and what we can learn from those early days. But the slight edge was, how many times have we read that book? Five, six, 7 times personally, I know for me. And everything we did was based on a philosophy. It was based on the slight edge. It was based, we have our 3 pillars when we started out that we borrowed from the gentleman that wrote The Slight Edge, Jeff Olson, and showing up, activity, and personal development. And that's important to hit on too, because you guys are talking about really a roller coaster, right? As a small business owner, as a sales professional, it's that yo-yo month, right? Oh, I had a big month in December, so maybe that early January, the end of December, am I really doing the activities that are relevant? Oh, and now I got to dip in January, so I got to ramp it back up. And a lot of the early days was from your coaching, your experience as a sales professional to be able to give us the insight of no, it's actually more important to close a month and start a month with more activity, or at least at the very minimum, the same consistent activity with that slight edge to avoid that yo-yo. Because the yo-yo as a small business owner is a dangerous place, man. I mean, especially when you talk about with capital limited. So the slight edge philosophy on kind of what we brought into our business, and anybody, I think you have to start with what you believe and what philosophy you hold. And then that's going to drive your actions. That's going to drive your activity, which are ultimately going to drive your results. And so I'm grateful for those early days. And we still, I mean, the last book that we read books as a company, obviously, together every 2 weeks, we'll jump on a call and we'll go through a book and we'll do a 30-minute. We've been doing that for.
We've done that for 15 years.
Yeah,
14 years.
And we've read The Slight Edge twice.
So let's give some. That's a great point.
Give a shout out.
I want to give a shout out to Jeff Olson, number 1, number 2, John Drennan. You guys have been just absolutely pivotal in the story of our story. Kathy Aaron, a lot of those early mentors. I want to talk about something. I want to let's give some people some value, some real tactics, some real strategy. One of the biggest things that I hear, that you guys probably hear the same thing, is I can't find good people. I can't find good people. It's hard to find good people. And I always chuckle when I hear that because, what you say is true is usually right and is usually what you experience. And I laugh because I feel like we've had a lot of luck with finding good people. Which is interesting, and I don't think it's by accident. I think what people don't know about inside of our 4 walls that we don't share a lot is those book studies, personal development. When we started, it was the 3 of us, and we said, this is how we're going to do this because this is how he had always done it before. And if you're in the business of running an enterprise or starting a business, you have 3 responsibilities, which is number 1, you have to engage and find talent. You have to develop talent, and you need to retain talent, right? That's you first. You got to retain yourself, right? You don't quit. But once you get to the point where you're hiring and you're doing that, there's an art and there's a science to that. But I think there is a cool science that's allowed us to excel in a sense of finding great people and developing great people, because a lot of people that are great here didn't start great, but they are pretty awesome at what they do now because they were students of their craft. But I think for us, we didn't really know insurance very well. So all we knew what to do was to be the messenger, not the message. All we knew was to point to something else and say, well, we don't really know the answer, but we know that has the answer. And we let the personal development drive the development inside of our company. We let that drive getting somebody from A to B to C to D. It wasn't us, right? I think that's pretty cool. We let the tool do the work, and the tool was the personal development calls that we had every 2 weeks. I think it was every week.
It was every week for a number of years.
For 5 years, maybe.
Yeah.
And just for those that are tuning in, so what we would do is we would pick a book, right? Part of our core value is personal development, right? Showing up, activity, and personal development. And personal development just comes down to reading 10 pages of a good book a day. And part of that study was we wanted to hold each other accountable, or and create a platform where the development tool, could do the work for us. So we would check in every week and we would study a book. And we did this, and we're still doing that to this day, 9 years later. And in turn, it creates...
It's called a night. We're shooting this on the 15th of January. I believe we call it a night, or maybe it's next Wednesday.
There you go. So, but the point of that is, you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be an expert in your industry. You don't have to be the coach all the time. You don't have to have all the answers. You can simply point to the tool that says, I don't have all the answers, but I know that inside these books has everything and more that we need to know to become a world-class organization, to be a world-class professional, to everything that we want to know. So if you're out there and you're saying, man, it's hard for me to find good talent, or one of those, I can't find good people. Number one, stop it, because you're creating your reality. So number one, there's a lot of great people out there, and the world is abundant of talented, incredible people who are looking for a great home. So you're your worst own enemy. Don't ever say that. Number two, have you created a platform to give yourself an opportunity not to be the end all be all? Because as operators, we have an ego. Sometimes we want to be the guy, but there's a lot of dangers that come from being the guy, because then no one can excel past your skill set because you're always wanting to be the guy. And I think that's a cool tool that I don't know of a lot of organizations that do that, but I fundamentally believe that has been the baseline to our success of growing people. So
what you're saying is gold, first of all. But second of all, it goes right into the idea of resources. We had to be creative in how we would recruit, because we weren't able to provide a competitive salary. We weren't able to provide health insurance and benefits and all this stuff now that we've been able and been fortunate enough to be able to implement. Right? So as you're recruiting, I think that you talk about starting a business with no money versus resources. I think the easiest thing to do is say, well, we'll just pay people more, or we'll, whatever it is. But then what if you don't have that ability? Then what do? Do you just not hire? Do you just hire bad people, incompetent people? Or what you're saying is, or do you decide to get really creative and look into the soul of what people are looking for? Right? Solve the problem of the people that you're recruiting. And maybe it's a lack of fulfillment. Maybe it's a lack of the ability to grow and advance to the next level. Maybe they're looking for a home in an industry. I know for us, our first key team member came from hospitality, and that first initial conversation came from him doing a good job, waiting on you, and you saying, hey man, like, what do? You're sharp. I'd love to connect with you, right? If you would have had the resources, or we would have had the resources, we'll just go get a recruiter. We'll go hire somebody, and we'll pay them to go find us somebody who's a seasoned insurance professional.
Such a good point.
And because those resources did not exist, it didn't allow us to be able to do that, which ultimately led to one of the most effective tools that we've used in growing our business, which is recruiting. And being able to grow and being able to retain really quality people.
It makes me think to hear you say a couple things, man. First of all, to the person that says there's no good people, or are you somebody that someone would want to follow? The first thing I think about, right? And you think about what we've poured into our own development to hold ourselves accountable to hopefully someday be the person that people want to follow. To the people that say I can't find a good help. Where do you sit, right?
Such a good point.
Because to your point, man, there's all kinds of people out there, but are you willing, like we were willing, to meet people where they are, invite them, right? We didn't mandate anything.
Absolutely.
We invited them to say, hey, there's seats available here at this company, and we think we want to work with you based on who you are. We also want to invite you to become a better version or become more of yourself, right? So those things, hearing you both talk about that, it makes me extremely proud that, and I love the shout out to Jeff and John. You think to yourself, back in those days, we just became students of what they were teaching, and we just embodied because it made sense. You talk about philosophy. Everybody wants to teach people. People come in and they say, "Well, how do I do this?" And I'm reminded more of, we never taught anybody how to do this because we didn't necessarily know how to do it. But where we were bullish was we have to know that you think the right way, so how you do the hows that everybody wants to know that nobody really knows.
Your attitude, the way that you look at the opportunities when you
problems,
when you experience a mistake. Do you look at that as an opportunity, and what's your perception of the bigger picture when something occurs, which is going to allow you to make a good choice instead of slipping to the third page on the manual and executing the process. Now, I'm not downgrading process.
Of course,
we have processes too, but
That's
is it
secondary.
fair to say the processes didn't exist for 3-4 years? Because they were changing all the time. It's back to that value as far as we thought we were building our processes for the end user, but then all of a sudden we were shortcutting the person that was sending in the business. So we had to rewire our process.
Well, how about if you have somebody with a shitty attitude? I don't care how good your processes are down on paper. I mean, the person with a shitty attitude is gonna they're going to still be the problem.
Totally.
Or how much you know, right? Insurance experience, you mentioned it, or industry. I mean, we're talking about insurance because that's what we do. But I think we just recently hired somebody 6 years in with insurance experience.
Right.
I mean, that's 6 years, us starting without very much experience.
Yeah.
And you know what's cool is experience is great, but not if it's at
the expense
of the attitude.
Of a good attitude.
Right? And if somebody's got experience and an awesome attitude and it's going to be coachable, sign me up.
Yeah.
But then also, I don't know if we could afford somebody with experience. So
curiosity. I think curiosity is leads to an open mind, right? And then open mind basically is an attribute or a symptom of humility, right? When you know it all and you have experience, you're not open to the curiosity of maybe I could learn something here. You don't ask questions. You don't listen. You think you have it all figured out. And at the end of the day, whether you're talking to a customer, whether you're talking to somebody who sends you business, you're talking to, in our business, an underwriter, or you're just talking to maybe your partner or your staff, you're not inviting people to work with you. You're inviting people to work on behalf of you or for you or do something because you know it and they don't. And at the end of the day, nobody wants to be in that scenario. Use your experience as a tool to make sure you're in the right place, but don't use your experience as a way to dictate what needs to happen. And so many of us use that as a reason as to why people should follow us. And the reason people follow people is not because of your experience. The reason people follow is because you inspire them. You inspire them to be better. You inspire them to do something that maybe they don't do. You know, why are we inspired by people that go to the gym every day? All of us are, because there's a discipline there. And at some level, all of us struggle with it. You know, all of us battle with it. But when we see somebody do that, we say, man, their actions inspire me because I want that discipline.
Sure.
Or how about communication, right? Somebody has the humility to say, maybe someone has 20 years plus experience, but they have enough humility and an open mind to listen to somebody that only has 6 months worth of experience and maybe learn something, right? That is an incredible quality that someone would look at and say, man, I want to work with that type of person.
That's right.
You know?
I want to jump off too, because it goes to business owners, entrepreneurs, people growing teams, is the question is, when's the right time to hire? You talk about how you start with revenue, you start with customers, you start with marketing, right? Because without a customer, you don't have a business, right? You have a cool thing to talk about at a cocktail party, as we mentioned, right? So once you go out and you're able to establish yourself in the marketplace, and you as the business owner, you're the business, you're the employee, you know, right? You're doing it all. And then, you look at yourself and say, okay, cool. We're getting to a point where, we could really use some help. We could build some infrastructure. That's a priority, whatever it may be. I would like to ask you guys, and I'm actually going down memory lane, to where our personal experience is it always felt like we hired before we were ready, quote unquote, meaning we could still do the job, and it was maybe a little bit premature.
Yeah.
And it always felt like, man, it was that battle where, wow, we've really found, because I think what you're talking about is you're recruiting, right? So you find somebody you want to work with. Okay, cool. Well, what if this job is, maybe the job's not even available. Maybe the job's not even carved out. We don't maybe know what you want to do. We just know, hey, we want to work together.
Yep.
And then we got to figure out the capacity in which we can do that to where it's a mutual fit. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about that, because I know that's what it always felt like for me. It always felt like, gosh, man, we're hiring because we wanted to work with this person. And then it's about making it to a point where we can plug them in, they can contribute right away and get on the path. And that was a big pain, especially initially, because you obviously talk about limited resources. You talk about a starving owner, which we all were. We didn't take a a livable wage. You know, we were below the poverty line for what, 3 or 4 years.
Sure.
We're pushing 4+.
Yeah, maybe almost 5.
Yeah.
And that's not to toot our horns. We made that decision intentionally, but we hired somebody within 2. You know, a gentleman named Matt Eckberg.
And there's 3 of us.
Right, and that was a downside of what we talked about, the skill set equity. That sounds good and great,
Sure.
right? That sounds like, hey, we got a good thing going. You should be able to grow faster because there is 3 of you.
Yep.
But man, can that be painful in the early days because there's also 3 families involved. There's 3 mouths to feed.
Yep.
And so now you're talking about hiring somebody else.
Goosebumps again.
You're talking about hiring somebody else. You're like, nah, dude, I can do that.
Right.
Right? And so
I would love to touch on that. Number 1, I think you got to begin with the end in mind, and you got to look at what your priorities are. And it just comes back to what we talked about. And I think we all made the decision early on that we were going to put our personal needs aside for the greater good of what we wanted to build. And I think that's a little unique. I don't know if I would give that advice to somebody, because that takes a unique deal, and I think it's unfair to put a label on that and package it and sell it. So call that for what it is. But the balance of having 3 people is, at some point, none of us wanted to talk about our hardships. None of us wanted to talk about our personal needs, because we always wanted to talk about the business and what was right for the business. So there was relatively limited conversations about what we personally needed, because we wanted to sacrifice that for the good of the enterprise.
We did that for 5 years.
And we did a lot. And I think we made some really good choices because of that. We had to deal with some pain, but I think we made some really good choices because there was 3 minds, and we were always collectively looking at the business itself, not our 3 scenarios. So that's number 1. I think priority-wise, we had always made a pact that our enemy was being a small business. I think I feel comfortable sharing that we did not want to be the insurance agents that sit in one room and there's 3 of us all in one room and we make a nice income, but it's the 3 of us come to work and we do everything. We wanted to grow a cause. We wanted to grow something bigger. We wanted to give the gift of personal development. This was our vehicle to do it. So priority-wise, I think it just matched up with what we wanted. I think if somebody's first objective is to replace their income.
Sure, yeah.
Because I think most people watching this maybe work for somebody else and they're going to start an enterprise and their main job and their main priority is to replace their income. I think it would be a bad decision to hire somebody. I think people hire too quick. I think people hire for the wrong reasons. I think people hire because they don't want to do the work. I think people hire because it makes them feel like they're moving the needle. I think they hire out of ego. And your main priority should be your main priority, and you shouldn't worry about the external forces of what you're supposed to have your priorities. So number 1, if you're looking to replace your income, I think you should do what you need to do and grind till you need to grind till you replace your income. If you're not in that situation where you need to quote unquote replace your income, beginning with the end in mind is leverage an important factor for you. For us, we decided that leverage was going to be a very big part of what we needed in order to grow, because a lot of our skill sets required us to be out and do the deal, and we needed some back office administrative work to be done so it could free us up to grow the company. So we made a decision that we were willing to sacrifice income in order to move top line, because that got us quicker to our goal and further away from our enemy, which was being a small business. So again, I think it comes down to priorities, but I think the key to that is, I think we lie to ourselves what our priorities are based on what we think, we think other people or the world says should be our priorities, instead of, dude, I just need to replace my income because I got to feed my family.
Desperation.
Well,
we didn't really ever let desperation factor in.
No.
Even though there was pain hidden.
Yeah. Even though there was plenty to go around.
Yeah, there was plenty to go around. We just,
it was channeled in a different way.
We had some dark days and some dark conversations,
Sure.
but we were very vigilant in not allowing those dark days or dark conversations to be any sort of a driver to what we were doing and the direction we were taking the company. And that's something I think to commend each other on, And I like that you say what we committed to for 5 years as far as a living wage goes. We wouldn't recommend that.
No.
But I'll tell you what, it sure does make where we're sitting now and what we potentially could see as
we wouldn't be here for that.
We wouldn't be here, right? And I just look at that and I go, man, thank God that we made that decision, as tough as it was. And I say tough as it was, and I probably had the least right to say that, because I had an income where you guys started out, you didn't have an income. So, and it's worth, we want to get raw, we want to get real. I mean, I had an income. Let's say it. I had an income and I had a big nut, but at the same time,
different life experiences, different backgrounds,
right.
different.
Right.
Yeah,
and wanting to let go of that, but realizing that what I had created for myself.
You had a child.
Those two, I had
two kids,
two kids, and a wife, and a house that I had responsibility to, from living a certain way that an entrepreneur making the decision we were going to make didn't jive with.
Match up.
Didn't match up.
Well, and you want to get raw and vulnerable, man. I remember, thank God we were able to file our taxes. That first year, yes, that's different. Filing.
Do you have to file your taxes when you make that?
As a business owner?
Isn't that like if you get like a certain amount of money, you don't have to file it?
Yeah. So once you actually file, you get that W-2. I remember vividly that W-2 for me. I was a single guy, and I got out, and it was $8,000, man, all year, $8,000, and I'm so glad you said I wouldn't recommend that, because I totally agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's that conversation, if you were going to do it again, would you do it all over again? The answer is no, because I know what I know now, but I didn't know then. So it's the beauty of the balance of you going through it, learning along the way. Because another thing, you talk about starting with a customer and getting in a sales mode and bringing revenue in. In our business, in the property casualty insurance space, a lot of times you don't make money until the second, third year, depending on how creative and what you're spending on marketing, what you're spending on payroll. Right. So imagine that, and it's not a high price point. Most of the policies that you're selling, the revenue to the actual agency is $150, $200 per policy.
Yep.
I remember talking to some real estate agents early on, and they somehow found out, like, oh yeah, what do you guys make if you sell a $1,000 homeowner's policy? We're like, oh, we make like $100, and they were like, oh my God, can I buy you lunch?
Where they're gonna make like $5,000.
Right? Can I buy you lunch today? Like, yeah, no, but I mean, if you develop a relationship long term, obviously you have the opportunity each year to be able to renew and help with that business, and they're like still like, oh my God. So when you do that,
what are you guys thinking?
When you start a business organically, meaning you don't have any book of business, you don't have any customers, and you have to go out and get those customers, bring them in, services. So organically, we grew our business organically for the first 4.5 years, give or take, right? And that was another thing of, usually in our business, you're going to come in and start it. You're usually going to start it with an acquisition, because you can buy a book of business which spits off revenue immediately, and then you can use that revenue to use on marketing, to use on hiring, to use on all these in office space,
and then
grow organically. And you talked about limiting mistakes. Well, we hadn't earned the right. Not only did we not have the capital, but we hadn't earned the right. So to do that initially would have been such a mistake for us.
Yeah.
Versus other people, it's a home run. And now, sitting here in this room, we've been through 3 acquisitions, all different size shapes, 2 different marketplaces. But that certainly wasn't how we started. And because of that, organic growth has always been a huge priority for us, regardless of an acquisition. And so I look back at that and say, man, was that tough, wouldn't do it again, but what a cool way to eliminate some risk while we learned what we were doing, and then be able to capitalize when that opportunity came along.
Well, how about you say it's great one. Not having earned the right? I mean, 4.5 years of building it organically, we didn't even have anything leverageable for a bank to give us, resources to make a purchase if we had decided to do that back then. So fast forward how many years it took us to even have something attractive enough to present to someone to make a purchase.
Well, and we started, our first team member was paid hourly, had another job, worked 2 jobs, worked very, very hard, came in to learn the business, and we were able to offer him a full-time salary maybe 1.5 years later, 2 years later. And I think that was a cool part, but it was also another one of those decisions where, damn, like we got to
just set ourselves back.
We got to make this leaders eat last. It's a good call.
Well, that's a good pivot point. I wanted to try to give some some value to somebody that's watching this and thinking to themselves, okay, there's great people out there. I get that. I'll buy that. But what do you guys do? Or what's the best way to go about that? Or what does that look like? What are some philosophies? Because there's a lot of things we're really bad at. I think one of the things that we're pretty good at is recruiting. Just because I think we love what we do and we love to tell people about that. And we actually have conviction and belief that this is the best place to work that you could possibly work.
No question.
So I want to give some strategy and some tactic to somebody that's watching this right now that we believe that I think really helps you or will help you with recruiting. Until you had mentioned it, but I think number one is what's in it for them. I think if you're recruiting in any job or any endeavor or anything, it could be basketball, it could be a sport. The bottom line is you as the person that's recruiting, are you looking at what is in it for them? And I think a lot of times most people that are recruiting are thinking what's in it for themselves, instead of what's in it for the person that they're obviously looking to offer them a job. If you can answer the question of what's in it for them, then you're at least on the right starting point. And then people say, well, is it just money? Well, I think you can't just be money, because at the end of the day, it's about value of working with you. And there's a couple ways that you can add value to somebody that you're looking at bringing on board. Number one, it's fun. You offer a place that's really, really fun. Number two, it could be social. You have an environment that's very social, that gives people a sense of belonging that they don't have at their other job. They go into 9 o'clock and they leave at 5 and they don't talk to anybody after that. Number three is personal development, and that ended up being the pillar that we, organically, that's just what we love. And we believe that if you come work here, you become a better person, not a better professional first. And I put that up against anybody that we compete with. So that ends up being the pillar that we believe gives value to people without just extra compensation. And ends up being interesting. The more somebody personal develops, they end up making more money. So it's interesting. But then the fourth is just a noble cause. It could be somebody who believes in going green, and they believe that they're doing something to save the world. They believe that they're making an impact in their social, community, as far as it could be different outreach programs that they belong to. But it could be a cause that somebody gets to belong to. The first question is find out what your value is. That's not just monetary value. Yes, you have to offer a competitive wage. Yes, you have to be able to give benefits that are competitive in the space. But if you're paying at the top end for every single person that you bring on board, you better have some fancy mousetrap that allows you to run a ridiculously high profit margin. Otherwise, you're going to be out of business. So number one, I think, is know your value and understand that if someone's going to come work for you, what's in it for them? I think we're very good at understanding what's in it for them, and our message is very, very clear. So that's number one. Number two, once you know what that is, skills equity, we talked about it again, knowing where they're going to fit within the organization, how their skills are going to provide value to the whole. When people understand what they are good at, and that's what you're looking for, and they can contribute, all of us want to contribute at some level. So to be recruited into an organization where I have a very definitive, clear understanding of what's in it for me if I join your enterprise, also understanding the skills that I bring to the table are exactly what you're looking for, and I know where I'm going to fit, that provides a significant amount of clarity, and it makes me feel really good that I'm going to be able to contribute. And then number three is selling the dream. And I know we believe in this big time, is all of us have grand plans for ourselves, and coming to work for your company at the job and the role that you're recruiting for does not have to be the end all be all. As a matter of fact, the majority of us are hoping that where we start is not where we finish. So understanding what somebody's needs are, what's in it for them, understanding where their skill sets fit and how they're going to contribute, and then also being able to sell them on, hey, if you do a good job, this is where I see you ending up being. This is where I see an opportunity for you. This is where this could turn into. Giving somebody a vision of where they could be, a lot of times people don't look at that for themselves. They don't have the ability to look out far enough. They don't have the ability to see that for themselves. They're just worried about, right now I got to find a job, or I'm worried about the next 90 days, or what this year looks like. But you as an entrepreneur, you as an operator, you as a recruiter, you need to be able to set a cast of vision. You need to be able to sell the dream to somebody to where they go, man, where I am today is not where I'm going to be. And by the way, maybe I'm working in a place where and this has happened, multiple key team members that have come on this team have come on board. They were 10 years into their career, so they're making a good income where they are, but they're not very happy where they are, and they want to make a change. But here's the bottom line. When you make a change from having 10 years of experience and being proficient to going to a new industry where you know nothing, you're not going to make the same amount of money. So do you have the ability to communicate as a leader that says you are going to take a pay cut because you're not worth as much over here as you are over here yet? But then number two is, here's where I see this being, here's where you can get to. If you can do a job casting that vision and hit all three of those, you have the potency to be able to be a really good recruiter.
So I want you to go into every single one of those. The fun, you had made a list, right? You made it clear what's in it for them, what are their skills, and then selling the dream. But you also had mentioned it's a fun place to work, that list of four, right? And before you go into it, I just wanted to capitalize on what you said. I come from a basketball background, and you talk about being recruited, and the best recruiters are the ones that, what I wrote down is being understood. You mentioned skills and being understood and how that can make somebody feel great. When somebody in the basketball world calls you and says, hey Brett, man, and you get a feel that coach understands who you are as a player.
Right.
And then says, basically, we value who you are as a player.
We're not going to try to make you different.
We're not going to try to make you different. But then that makes you feel like, one, wow, that's a sense of belonging. And then what they also do is they do sell the dream. Where you are as a player is valued, but here's also where I could see us going together. And I think the best recruiters in, say, college basketball, college sports, or whatever it is, are the ones that are able to communicate an understanding of that person's game, relay that it is valuable to them, and then also be able to sell the dream on what they can accomplish together because of that.
That's great.
And then also, of course, the what's in it for them is the features conversation, features and benefits, of the benefits of you coming to this school and how it's going to, understanding your goals and how we're going to basically accomplish them. So, but I did want to, since you're going into tactics and you're giving people actually say, great, that's fun. How do we have fun at work? 2, personal development. How do you actually create a place where you personally develop? 3, how do you create a place where you do have a social connection?
Sure.
And then 4, what was number 4? Cause. How do you create a mission that maybe is beyond what today is?
Okay, number 1, it's going to depend on who you are as an entrepreneur. Don't try to pretend to be somebody that you're not. And at the end of the day, if you're a really fun person, then that's okay. But if you're not that fun, you gotta have some self-awareness. We all know if you're fun or not, right? But if you're not that fun and that's not your playful personality, creating this fun environment is gonna be foreign to you. It's gonna be alien to you. So therefore it's gonna come off as fake. It's not genuine, therefore it's not real, therefore it doesn't exist. So number 1, or I should say number 2, would be to figure out yourself. Because at the end of the day, our businesses are a reflection of the person that birthed them, at least in their beginning stages. And I would say probably to the end, whoever's leading that organization is a reflection of leadership. So I think you got to figure out what you're tied to, what's going to be organic for you. If you're a very social person and the idea of doing events with your team on a consistent basis to do fun things is exciting to you and you enjoy that, then that would be a great outlet for you to do that. But if you have a packed life and you're not able to really do that, and the idea of spending time outside of work to do social events is painful to you, I wouldn't do that if I were you, because you're not going to be able to perpetuate it. You're not going to be able to do a call for 9 years, right? I love the call. I know you guys love the call because it's organic. And the bottom line is, if it was just the 3 of us, we'd be on a call discussing a book. I don't give a shit about everybody else in regards to if they think that it's important or not. Yep. We think it's important. And because there's conviction there, because it's organic, because it's genuine, other people want to follow because they go, well, what is going on there? There must be something to that because they're convicted about it. So you have to have conviction about what it is. So, and then actual real strategy wise, I think fun doesn't have to be loose place to work. I think when it's time to work, it's time to work. And when it's time to have fun, it's time to have fun. And yes, there is some gray area and a dichotomy there, but just because it's fun doesn't mean that you don't get after it and you're not goal oriented, okay? By fun, I mean playful in a sense of what do you do to create, like a cool thing is we had a prospective customer that they have Nerf guns. And every once in a while they have a break and they do Nerf guns, throughout the day. And it creates this playful environment that people say, you know what, life's not that serious. Let's not take ourselves too seriously. Another thing that we do here, and that a lot of the girls do, which I think Tori started in Dr. Phillips, is at a certain time, I think it's 3 o'clock, they get up and do a yoga stretch. They get up and do a stretch session. And it's just a fun, playful thing to kind of relieve
Or
some
dance.
of the...
It's not always yoga.
Oh yeah, they do dance too?
It's yoga, there's meditation, there's a little bit of a dance, and it's up to, it goes round robin. Each person leads
awesome.
that 5-minute break and chooses kind of,
That's
and
awesome.
it creates cool camaraderie, but in the
So
early
fun.
days, you mentioned fun, a mini basketball hoop.
A basketball hoop.
Yeah.
There you go. That's we used to... Yeah, exactly. Yes, you're going to have a little bit of productivity loss, but it's worth
And
it.
it's going to get loud.
It'll get loud.
You got to be okay with that.
Yep.
Fight through.
Yeah, but you know what's cool is subcultures, right? The subculture in Melbourne, that they've created that, and that's really fun because that's them, and that's what they are all about. And it's genuine, and it fits within obviously what we're doing here. But you know, and for a cause, you know, look, I think in the beginning of a business, I think you need to be loose with your cause unless you're really, really convicted because you haven't figured out who you are yet.
Yeah.
Most of us don't start a business because we're convicted to change the world. Most of us start a business to make money. Most of us start a business because we want autonomy. Most of us start a business because we want to work on our own terms. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
So to think that you're going to go out and start a business and change the world and to eradicate, you know, some sort of sickness or do something really big, I think is not genuine. I think it comes off as fake, and I think people know that you're not being genuine because at the end of the day, you just started. You're just trying to get a customer. I don't think that's real. So, but as you grow and as you develop and as you learn about who you are, I fundamentally believe that to the core of every single business has to be a noble cause that drives the activity in which you do. Because if people don't feel, starting with the leadership, if people don't feel like what you're doing actually matters, then at the end of the day, the monetary value of that erodes away. It has to be about something that's emotional, and money is not emotional. When you have a cause, it makes you care. And how many customers, how many people receive some sort of product and service on a daily basis and they know somebody doesn't care? And something as simple as that is, I think, is a systematic deal. It's not necessarily the person you're talking to doesn't care, because everybody's a person. When you have a bad experience on the phone with somebody, they hang up the phone, they go home, they care about something. They're a good person. They're a real person. It's just they don't care about what you're talking about. So creating a noble cause that you can get behind creates a systematic, global caring throughout the organization. You can't pay for that. You can't throw enough money at anybody to get them to care. When you tie back what you do every day to something that really, really matters and it's genuine, all of a sudden the activity of what I do every day is not just about serving the customer. It's not just about doing a good job. It actually fundamentally comes back to an actual core mission of why this is important. And that's a deep question, and that's a whole other subject, but it's absolutely critical.
Well, it's taken us how long to figure out?
A long time.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I don't think it has to be clear to get started.
Yeah,
I think there's a different level of clarity throughout this deal, through your experiences. But what I wanted to highlight what you said, because I wanted to, you went through a lot, which is all great stuff, but I wanted to give the cliff notes of saying, fun, make it a light place, take some fun breaks, whether that's meditation, a basketball hoop, a little mini basketball hoop, whether it's a dance in the middle of the day.
Yeah, bring them a space in.
Create an environment that does not allow you to take yourself too seriously, because it's hard. In those early days, for us, I know specifically, but for a lot of people, money's tight, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's a serious deal. Like, your livelihood is on the line. You're spending a lot of time doing this. And I think it's a discipline to understand that, you know, if you don't take time to have some fun and mix in, you know, and not take it too seriously, you're not going to stay the course. You're not going to be able to get to the prize of the fruit on the other side of the mountain. And then number 2, personal development. We've been dancing around it, but we've been running a call for over 10 years. It's usually a weekly thing. Lately, it's become an every 2-week thing, and we go through a personal development book together. It could be on, happiness. It could be on a skill set, a sales. It could be, so many books. I mean, I know we've probably gone through 20 plus books together over the years, probably more. And so it's creating a platform that allows people to personally develop, right? And I think that's an important part of what you're saying. People go, what personal development? Cool, like, how do you do that? Well, you create a platform that allows somebody to, first of all, come in and go, I haven't read a book. How many times you bring a team member on and they go, I haven't read a book since middle school, since high school. And you go, dude, that's exactly how I was. This is so cool. Let's go through this together. And they plug in on that call and they go, one, scared to death to say anything. Two, maybe they read the chapter, maybe they didn't. But they're within the platform so they can grow within it. And so every week, every 2 weeks, they have the opportunity to fit in to that platform.
Well, and I want to hear Rod's thoughts on this, but you know, you can have a mixture of all of these. An example of this that I think is really practical, we did personal development dinners for 7 years.
That's where I was going, yeah.
So we had a call every week, and then we had a dinner every month at somebody's house.
With pizza and noodles. And
So you
spaghetti.
want to talk about social, right? Social's one of those. We were not even knowing it. We didn't know this, but we were creating a community that if somebody worked at Urban Young, it was so much more than work. It was a place where people could do life together. It was a place where everybody could grow together. It was a place where you could come and hang out together. We made it about 24 hours a day was Urban Young. It wasn't 9 to 5. And some people would look at that and say, man, you can't get people to do that. That's fine. It was voluntary. But people, if you're coming from a place of genuine, I want to contribute instead of, oh, this is something you should do and we need you to show up to this, then it's a completely different deal. So, but we were creating social and we were creating a community revolved around personal development. But at the end of the day, the underlying cause was to create an extraordinary life for not only ourselves, but everybody that was involved with it.
But keep in mind, I think it's unfair to skip to the cause because we didn't know how to articulate what we were doing until the last few years.
Yes.
So, you know, to say that when we were recruiting based on the cause that you articulated is not accurate, right? I mean, all those things that we were able to put together and now oozes through our brand, and that clarity is so powerful here almost 10 years in.
Yep.
But to start, it wasn't that way. And then the social part you hit on too, right? I feel like the more you grow a business, or maybe that you start a business with resources and money, you know, you see all these businesses, and us included, that throw a fence, or hey, I'm gonna go do this team building at the axe throwing competition, or I'm gonna go do this team building and we're gonna do a happy hour at whatever, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to go do some fun activity that costs money, right? Like it can be as simple as getting together at a team member's house and having conversations about how everyone's doing and ordering a pizza or making pasta. I do vividly remember making pasta and spaghetti
All the time.
because it was the least expensive.
Yeah.
And so one, it was probably the responsible thing to do, but two, we weren't getting together because of the spaghetti we were having. We were getting together because we wanted to be belly to belly to talk through how our days were, to talk through how each other were doing. And I think the social part can get misconstrued when you talk about culture, and that'll be another side note, but it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It just has to be whatever you're deeming.
Well, I mean, part of
important.
it was also based on a philosophy, which was we hang out with our core people.
Sure.
That was a philosophy from the start that we all believed in. That we read 10 pages of a good book a day, and we hang out with our core people. And what I'm proud of is that it's not enough to just go through and say, here's what I believe. I'm going to write it down on a piece of paper. We're going to make a nice fancy billboard. We're going to stick it in the office, and these are our core beliefs. You have to create what you call the platform that systematically reinforces the behavior that you want, right? The call happened with or without us. It was set in motion, right? And there was accountability that if one of us weren't able to do it, there was another person to pick up the slack. But then also the dinner happened with or without us. It was just something that we did, and it became part of the process of what we did. And it wasn't just, hey, we believe in personal development, and just saying it over and over again, but not doing anything about it. And I think whatever you decide is going to be your value that you offer someone to come work with you, you have to have systematic things and processes that reinforce that. Otherwise, it's just smoke and mirrors, right? It's just a thing around the office that people look at and go, yeah, that just sounded good. They dream that up on a whiteboard, put it on a nice fancy poster, but they don't even live by it. It's worse having it up because that just means that you're not genuine to what you say.
I think to myself, and listening to you guys talk, I think to myself, if you privately polled our team and you asked them these questions, I think everybody would agree that we walk our talk, and we've become the examples first. But you think, I go back to something you said, Brett, that I think about all the time. People want to talk about work-life balance, and we say there's no balance here. It's work-life integration. We want the two to be symbiotic, and they have become that way, really from the beginning. Hanging out with our core people. What a gift that's been, right? And that which goes back to recruiting. The fact that I would want to spend time with this person,
Yes.
because of their qualities that they possess right now today.
Yes.
We're not worried about what you know about insurance. We just genuinely want to be around you.
Yeah.
That's been everybody we work with.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing right now.
It's exactly what we're doing right now. I mean, we miss each other. As funny as that may seem, we miss being face to face with each other. And if we don't get anything out of today, I get to see you guys.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, buddy.
You know, I mean,
Appreciate that.
so I just, and then the last thing that I think about is we've had this call going since we met. There was a day when I hadn't read a book short of school.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it was 2006, 2007, where we looked at each other and said, okay, well, all these weirdos are talking about reading books and personal developing. Whatever, let's do it. And we just we fell in cadence and we did it. But think about how many people became part of this team that had never read a book.
Right.
And what are those people doing now? They're eating books.
Eating books, yeah.
I remember one of the first things your mom ever said to me. I don't know who you are, but Brett's never read a book. He's eating books. So I don't know what you're doing. And I'm thinking, hey, there's nothing special here. I didn't read a book either. We're eating them together. So I mean, we laugh about it, but I mean, that was a decision to say the people we've entrusted to, and I don't even want to call them mentors in the early days because we didn't know who the heck they were, but we felt like, the things we were being fed about growth, we kind of bought into it, but we really didn't know how to label it or define it.
Sure.
So we just kind of trusted. And the one thing that we've been good at is saying, man, I don't really know the answer, but let's just trust. That started with us.
Yeah.
And then as people have joined us, both internally and out externally, like think about the people that are reading because they know we're reading.
Yeah.
That's a big group of people.
It's amazing.
I think you create what you're mentioning is you're creating a tribe of people that believe like-minded things, and everyone's not a fit.
Right.
It's some people don't dig that stuff, and that's cool.
Yeah,
There are plenty of people that thought, man, think about Matt. I mean, you guys are gonna get on a call and talk about a book. Like, you guys are weird. I just want to bang phones, or I just want to,
Yeah, but the personal development part for me too is like creating the platform. Why I think it's so important is it's not about reading a book is an introduction to that. That's one thing, right? That's a skill set, just being an avid reader and what that does for you, whether it be intellectually or being a better communicator, whatever it may be. But then also, you're engaging in a conference call now. How many people have never been on a conference call?
That's such
right?
a good point.
And then, oh, by the way,
cool skill
how many
set to
people have
build.
never led a conference call? And how nerve-wracking that is, and how many people struggle with public speaking, and to be able to have a platform that allows you to
Great
do all
point.
those things, right? Read some information, comprehend what it means to you, plug in and be a listener first, then get called upon and say, hey, maybe I can add some value as a communicator. What does that mean? And the preparation that goes into that. Creating actual tactical, tangible, personal development that people can transfer, whether they do insurance at Urban Young, or whether they go sell medical devices, or whether they go start their own business. But they take the skill sets from that platform to perpetuate and be a better professional, a better person.
Sure.
And that's true and true throughout.
I listen to
That's
you
so
say
good.
that, and I have a wish now that everybody listening to this, whether they're on the team or not on the team, understand the value in what you just said, in the fact that just being on a conference call is a skill set you want to learn how to do. Then learning how to contribute to a call, speaking up, unmuting and speaking up, sharing a practical statement. That's a skill set you want to build. Raising your hand and saying, I think I could host a call or introduce people. That's a skill set you want to build. Ultimately, I think I could lead one of these calls. And as uncomfortable as all those different phases may be, good. That's where you should be. You should be in those uncomfortable states. And I think that's my wish is that everybody listening to this, team members and those outside of our team directly, I just hope they take that for what I know you meant it.
Think about like that progression you just talked about, right? That's the whole progression of life, right? Uncomfortably getting on a call, right? It's at 9 o'clock at night. Number one, it's voluntary. You don't have to be on if you don't want to, but you're gonna, if you want to invest in yourself, it's always been, we're gonna create a platform where you have the ability to tap into the mothership. You don't have to tap into the mothership, but if you want to, you can tap in. Then speaking up, baby step, right? I'm gonna get a little out of my comfort zone. Then you do that for a little bit, right? And then all of a sudden, you get tapped on the shoulder that says, would you like to host a call? I think introducing people that check in, we do a check-in, and it's 10 minutes before the call. I think that's the most powerful thing that we do because it gives somebody an opportunity to do the call without actually doing the call, right? Checking everybody in is pretty easy as far as the X's and O's, but you have to fill the dead space of time. You have to, make it not awkward. You have to check in everybody. You have to keep track of who checked in. You have to. There's an art to it, right? There's a skill set there, but it's the bridge. You can't go from let me talk about something. Let me speak up on a call to let me host 30 minutes of content. You're just never going to get there, right? But if you check people in and you do that for 10 minutes, and then you get off and you feel, oh my God, I feel so proud of myself. Oh my God, I did it. That wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
Right.
And you do that 2 or 3 times, all of a sudden you go, you know what, man? I can do this. I can host a call for 30 minutes. Yeah, I build confidence. And how many of the parallels are like that in any new craft we set out on, right? Like any new endeavor, any new activity that we go to do, you're basically teaching somebody how to go from zero knowledge to engage in the activity, which is pretty awesome, which is pretty cool.
And you mentioned about how we started the call. Of course, there were no team members, right? we are the team members.
It was us.
So we're anything but perfect, right? So there were calls that we would miss. Oh man, I can't believe I either checked in late or I fell asleep, all that different stuff. But a cool memory is, and then at one point we said, hey guys, we're stopping the call because the commitment's got to start here. And then of course that didn't happen long, right? So we got back going. But the point was is if you're not engaged as leaders and it's not genuine to you, don't expect other people to get on the call. Don't expect other people to make a priority. I remember when Brett checked in on a call and you and I had something come up or we had not been on the call, and Brett ran the call by himself and talked to himself for 30 minutes.
Remember that? I do remember that vividly, and I remember you and I feeling like we got punched in the gut.
Oh gosh,
because it's like, how can we say this is important and leave this guy to talk to himself?
Did I record it and then send it to you?
No, you text us.
You did text us, and we had a laugh about it. But you're right, and then you take it one step further and you talk about the people that say there's no good people out there. Well, we call that core. Right? Good people are core, and core means different things to different people. You talk about becoming core. And in any organization, you got to define what that core means. But for us, we've realized in order to attract core people, we got to be, number one, we got to be core people.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about all the different phases of the call. You talk about all the other things we've talked about today, whether it's fitness or whether all the different facets of life. Why personal development is so important is because you constantly have to be growing in all those areas. Yeah. And no, we're not perfect. And if you looked at all the different areas of those that we could talk about, we're far from it. Mm-hmm. But being it is the only way you're going to ever attract.
Engaged in the practice.
To whoever says there's no good people out there, and then
are you a quote unquote good person yourself?
Are you attracting?
You're looking?
Would you consider yourself core in your own business? And would you say that if you're core, are you enough that people would want to follow?
Right. Because there's people recruiting good people all the time. You're just not doing it.
That's right.
So in the end of the day, you're just not good enough.
Well, and then you want to you can open Pandora's box on that one. What are your philosophies? Are you a negative person or a positive?
You have abundance mindset, scarcity mindset.
100%.
Yeah.
There's a saying that we always use with the call, which is either the call needs you or you need the call. Because some days you don't want to get on the call. Some days you don't want to do the deal. Some days you don't want to go to the gym. Some days you don't want to show up to work, right? But maybe the call, maybe you need the call that day because you're having a rough day. Or maybe you don't need the call that day. But you know what? Maybe somebody else needs you to be on the call. Maybe there's only one person there who could really use 2 people listening to him. right? So and then it becomes something about being part of community, right? There's a certain level of selflessness that comes from being part of a group where it's not about you anymore. And, it's not about what it means to be involved with being on a conference call for what you get out of it. I'd argue that you should get to the point where it's not about what you can extract, but you get to the point where it's about what you can contribute. And that's just a good reminder as you grind on the daily that you're always going to be in one of those two buckets, but either one of those buckets, as you toggle back and forth, there's always a compelling reason why you need to be engaged in the activity.
And what's so funny about what you just said when you talked about you either need the call or the call needs you, I thought about all the transferable words that you could have substituted in instead of call.
Right.
Either the team needs you or you need the team. Mm-hmm. Either the marketplace needs you or sometimes you need the marketplace. Like every single area, it's amazing how you could substitute that philosophy into different areas of your life.
Sure.
Your fitness, whatever it may be, right? So, man, I think this is a cool start to another platform that we're intentionally looking to create, right? And as we talked about personal development calls, we talk about platforms. Like we had mentioned before, a big part of this is for us. A big part of this is bringing us together and being able to create dialogue. And of course, there are benefits to hopefully those that are able to tune in. That feedback from you, that conversation is super important to us. But again, this is another one of those platforms that you look to create, so we can go from there. And I just kind of wanted to highlight a little bit about what we've discussed. And we started off talking about, well, what does it mean to start a business? And 2020 is when we're recording it, and every year you take inventory as a sales professional or entrepreneur. You're either seeing where you are and taking inventory, or you're seeing where you're going to go if you're just getting started, or there's a mixture of both. And we've talked a lot about starting a business without resources. We've talked a lot about recruiting and what it means. We've talked a lot about marketing and being able to get creative with your marketing. We've talked a lot about keep the main thing, and don't get ready to get ready. And, go get a sale before you get a business card and a big fancy sign and a big expensive lease on rent. Like we've talked a lot about a lot of stuff. And my hope with this platform is that what we can take from this broad conversation and share some insight on the early days of what it meant for us to actually start a business and go deeper down the personal development hole, go deeper down the leadership, stuff being genuine to you before you expect other people to find it valuable. Going deeper on our favorite thing to talk about, which is culture and putting people first and what that actually means. And you had some great tactics, and being able to share those tactics and be able to strip it down and share not only what we do, but some different things that we've seen from some other companies that are doing huge stuff that we see valuable. So that's kind of the intention. And gosh, I mean, we've been at it for a few hours, so
that's great.
I appreciate the conversation.
I have one plug. Part of this conversation will be the stuff that we want to talk about for ourselves selfishly, but just as candidly, you might have some things that are going on that you would like to discuss that you're struggling with, or that you just want to hear somebody else's perspective. You just want to hear about some other thoughts. So we would love that engagement. So if you would leave some notes in the comments, DM one of us about a subject or a topic that you want to discuss.
Yeah,
and cool. That would be fun, because at the end of the day, we've got the stuff that's near and dear to our heart, but I would love to get a left field curveball, and that'll be fun. There is no filter here, and if we don't have the answer, which is most of the time we don't, we have no problem saying we don't have the answer. But sometimes just having dialogue about something, even if it's something that you're not experienced on, can help somebody, because maybe you get affirmation that you're in the same boat. Or you get a different perspective that helps you get to an answer. So leave us some comments and please let us know, because at the end of the day, we want this to be valuable to everybody watching.
Absolutely. Great word, man.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right,
Thanks,
gang.
boys.
Thanks.